Good evening, everyone. We are interrupting our regular programming to bring you this breaking news story. It is a Sun News exclusive. And it is an explosive report involving Jack Layton, the leader of the NDP, and an alleged incident, and it really is not alleged, but an incident dating back to 1996. And right now we're going to bring in our reporter on this story, Sam Pisano. He's the courts reporter for the Toronto Sun here in Toronto, who is breaking this story tonight. Start at the very beginning. What happened?
Well, in the 1995-1996 was a concern the police had of underage prostitutes being brought in, and so they had a raid of different Bawdyhouses, massage parlors across the city. And one of the places that they raided was Dundas Street West location. And a couple weeks after the raid, two Vice Squad officers followed up on that, and they discovered Jack naked on a bed. And according to the officer I interviewed, the girl was leaving the room with her hands with a moist Kleenex in her hands, and Jack was inside the room. And they both were questioned, and Jack asserted that he didn't know that this was a place where sexual services were provided, and that he was simply there to get a shiatsu massage.
And we do have a graphic that we want to put up now, and it shows the exchange between Mr. Layton and the police officer who questioned him. So, the officer said to Mr. Layton, "Did you receive any sexual services?" Mr. Layton replied, "No, I was getting a massage." The police officer asked, "Why did you have all of your clothes off?" Mr. Layton did not answer. The police officer asked, "Are you aware that sex acts were being done here?" And Mr. Layton said, "No, sir." The woman that was in the company of Mr. Layton, who police, I understand, describe as an Asian woman, how else did they describe her?
She was in her mid-20s, attractive, slim woman, about 5'10", 125 pounds. She had been at that place earlier, 2 weeks ago, when the initial raid was conducted and a search warrant was executed by these same officers, so they were familiar with her, and she was familiar with them. She was asked, did you perform an act of masturbation upon this man? They weren't aware at the time that it was Jack Layton. And in fact, they looked at his identification. He identified himself. He was very polite and cooperative. And the officer asked him, his name was John Layton, he said, are you related in any way to the councillor Jack Layton? And he said, I am one and the same. So he admitted who he was as...
and sorry, can you just explain, John Layton, is that his legal name?
That's his legal name, John Layton. He always goes by Jack. And so, and they treated, those officers, to their credit, treated him as they would any citizen. And they had not seen him do anything illegal. He was naked on a bed, but they hadn't seen him in any act that would constitute a criminal act, and so he was simply cautioned and released from the scene.
Now, I understand that the officer might have also had a conversation with Mr. Layton about being present in that place and the potential dangers of it.
Well, he warned Mr. Layton that some of these brothels are fronts for money laundering and revenue sources for Asian gangs, and that some of the Johns were being videotaped and later extorted. And when the officer told Mr. Layton of that, he grew very pale. Obviously, he was shocked. Mr. Layton's position is that he was simply there getting a massage and that he's an innocent person, and he was released and no charges were laid.
Yes, and we will deal with the statement that has been issued very recently, just moments ago, by Olivia Chow, who is Mr. Layton's wife, of course. She was his wife at the time of this incident, correct?
Yes, in January 1996 when this happened, they were married for several years. Both were Metro councillors, and she asserts that she knew he was there, that as an athletic man as he was then and is today, He required massages. She knew he was there, and that's what he was there, and he was not there for any illicit purpose.
Okay, if we can bring up that graphic now, and I'm going to read the statement verbatim that's been provided to us by Olivia Chow in the NDP campaign. 16 years ago, my husband went for a massage at a massage clinic that is registered with the City of Toronto. He exercises regularly. He was and remains in great shape, and he needed a massage. I knew about this appointment, as I always do. No one was more surprised than my husband when the police informed him of allegations of potential wrongdoing at this establishment. He told me about the incident after it happened. Any insinuation of wrongdoing on the part of my husband is completely and utterly false. Ms. Chow goes on to say in her statement that in the last hours of this election campaign, this is nothing more than a smear campaign against her husband, she asserts. She goes on to say it is the reason why politics in this country needs to change. I assume she's referring to breeding cynicism concerning politics. And on Monday, she writes, Canadians will have their chance to do just that. I do want to ask you how it is that you came across this information.
I was given a tip that this had occurred. I was given a wrong location. I searched through many contacts, and I've been working on this story for several days until I finally reached the officer, who was very reluctant to come forward. And
did he say why he was?
Well, he's now a retired vice squad police officer. He's a private citizen, and he wants to remain private, and he didn't want to be caught in the eye of a political storm. So that's why he was very reluctant to come forward. And I'd like to say one thing is that the police officer told me that in this setup, there was a person at the doorway, and there was a light switch through the system. Every room had a green and a red light, and when police officers came in, the red light was put on, and that when the green light was on, then this place operated, he alleges, as a Bawdyhouse.
Right. And we, of course, have no reason to doubt the veracity of the police officer's notes, which you obtained, copies of which were shared with you. And I believe that we have a graphic that we can put up on the screen so that we can show our viewers at home these notes that were taken by the retired police officer. Apparently we don't. It's coming. We'll bring it to you as soon as we can. But I understand that he took copious notes. How would you describe his sort of note-taking?
He meticulously marked down everything that happened at that time. He interviewed the girl. He asked her if she had performed an act on him. She denied it. And then he repeated it. She became nervous, and she said, I just started to work here. And then she went down the hall to the bathroom, and then they both came into the room. He and his partner came into the room and spoke to Mr. Layton. He did appear surprised and shocked, and the officer was in vice for several years, so that's a common reaction among many suspected Johns.
Can we put those notes up? Apparently we do have them now. They will be difficult for our viewers to read. We do want to give you a sense of what they look like, and we do also want to demonstrate to you that these notes have been provided to Sun Media. We have copies of them, and as I say, we have no reason to doubt the veracity of them. I also understand that in addition to taking copious notes, they're also numbered. The pages are numbered. I don't know exactly what that indicates, if it's something official or not.
It's an official, this is a photocopy of the official notebook that the officer had that day. It was signed by his staff, his superintendent, throughout the notebook. He also had marked down all of the conversation he had with Mr. Layton and with the suspected prostitute, and it was put in there. He was asked, why do you have all your clothes off? He didn't have a response, and he's asked, were you aware that sex acts were being done there? And
so,
said no, sir.
In a moment, we're going to go to Ottawa and join our colleague David Aiken there to get some analysis on what the potential consequences are here politically, particularly in the context of a federal election campaign, one that is as hotly contested as this one, that has seen a very significant surge of NDP support. I do want to ask you, before we go to Ottawa, what did the officer say to you about why it's taken so long for this information to come into the public view?
No one has approached him, and he was not someone who was out trying to put his name out into the public. As I said, he's a retired police officer. He has his own private business. No one had approached him. He kept the notes for a personal reason, and he was pretty reluctant, but I had a pretty good reputation in the courts, and persuaded him that I could be trusted with this story.
But it's my understanding that he said something to the effect of this incident, notwithstanding no charges were laid, Mr. Layton was not arrested, nor was he charged with anything, that it was reasonably well known in police circles.
Well, but these police officers in the old regime used to keep secrets, and they're sworn by an oath of confidentiality, and one of the reasons he could speak to me is he's not bound by that, because no charges were laid. This incident did happen, it's on the record, but because no charges were laid, it's never been before a court of law. That's normally what journalists covers in the court of law, where it's all public record.
Forgive me if I'm forcing you to speculate, but you've had many conversations with the officer. Did the police have a sense of what they thought was going on here?
Yes, police officers were suspicious. The circumstances of a man naked in a room with a woman leaving with a wet tissue Kleenex in her hand as she's leaving. They asked her the question. She was nervous about it, and he denied it, but they had no evidence of any wrongdoing, so that's all they had.
Okay, I do want to now bring in our colleague in Ottawa. David Aitken is standing by. He is the host of the Daily Brief, and he joins us now. Hi, David. Obviously, the question that many of us are asking tonight, what is the fallout going to be politically here for Mr. Layton?
Presumably it's not good news for the NDP, obviously, and for Jack Layton, and I can't recall anything like this happening in a campaign, certainly with a couple of days ago, and certainly against the guy who clearly has been the most popular leader among Canadians. In every poll that's been done, it's all about Jack. Every bump in the NDP polls has been about Jack Layton. The brand is very much tied to him, and once again, what we have from Sam Pisano's reporting, talking to that Vice Squad cop, a story which some people are going to have questions. Olivia Chow has issued a statement right now. Jack Layton and the NDP plane is in Courtenay, BC. We've just been talking to our reporter on that plane, Christy Kirkup. The staff there have been huddling, obviously, since we asked him for a comment on this story. I can tell you, Krista, we do have a statement from the lawyer acting on behalf of the New Democratic Party. And I'll just read a paragraph from that. This is the lawyer for the New Democratic Party. The facts are that Mr. Layton had obtained a massage from a massage therapist, but had no knowledge whatsoever that that therapist's location may have been used for illicit purposes. He does recall being advised by the police at the time that he did nothing wrong, but that the location was questionable and to be stayed away from. Mr. Layton gave the officer his name and address, and nothing further happened. So that's what the NDP campaign is saying. And as I said, he's in Mr. Layton himself is in Courtenay, BC this evening, where he's about to have a rally. And his wife Olivia Chow is campaigning in Trinity Spadina in downtown Toronto, and that's where she is at this point.
David, we of course do not want to prejudge the outcome of an election campaign, but I do want to ask you, how might Mr. Layton's political opponents capitalize on this story with so few days and hours left to go in this election campaign?
I don't think they touch it with a 10-foot pole, to be honest with you, Krista. I think they just let it sit there, and people will read the newspapers, watch television newscasts, and we'll come to some conclusions. This did happen a long time ago, and Ms. Chow has said that she was aware of this, was aware of the appointment at the time, that Jack was getting a massage, a massage therapist. So presumably it's not news to her. Not news to the Layton family, and may or may not be news to the folks on the Layton campaign. But again, if I was Michael Ignatieff or Gilles Duceppe or Stephen Harper, I don't bring this up one iota and just try and keep sticking to my message.
Okay, and actually in a moment we're going to be joined by a veteran political strategist, and we will certainly put that to him. But I do want to ask you one more question, if I could.
Sure.
You know, these kinds of issues are more commonplace, quite frankly, in American politics than they are in Canadian politics. But what are some of the precedents that you can recall off the top of your head that may not be exactly similar, but somewhat comparable? You know, I'm thinking the Gerda Munsing affair or Francis Fox.
Francis Fox is probably the only thing comparable in Canadian politics where there was sort of the scintilla of scandal in a sense. Francis Fox was a Liberal Solicitor General in the cabinet of Pierre Trudeau in 1978, and it emerged that he had forged a signature in order to get, so his girlfriend at the time could have access to an abortion. I think he forged the signature of a husband or a boyfriend or something along those lines. That emerged, and he subsequently had to resign and ended up marrying that particular individual. But that'd be about the only thing. We do want to, I think maybe it's useful to point out in terms of Toronto municipal politics, which can be hurly-burly kind of politics. It's the biggest city, of course, in the country. And Layton at the time was you know, as we heard from Sam, was a city councillor. And at the time of this arrest, you know, some people are saying, you know, where is this coming from? And of course, that's a question that Sam would have asked the cop. It's important to note who was the chief of police at the time in Toronto. It was not Julian Fantino, who right now, of course, is a candidate in Vaughan and was a recent Minister of State, but in fact was Boothby, I think, was the chief of police at the time. So just other sort of pieces in this puzzle to put together.
That's a very fair point, and we appreciate you raising it, David. If I could ask you to stand by in
Sure.
Ottawa, just in case we need to come back to you for more analysis. That is David Akin. He is the host of the Daily Brief here on the Sun News Network. If you're just joining us, I want to recap for you what it is that we are learning tonight. It is a Sun Media exclusive. In 1996, Toronto police discovered during a raid of a massage parlor in the Toronto area, Jack Layton, naked, sprawled out in a bed in the company of a woman, Chinese in descent, and she was, police tell us, she had in her hand a Kleenex that was saturated, and police also tell us that that's commonplace in bathhouses to see that sort of thing. Excuse me, not bathhouses, massage parlors.